boys and girls, guess what time it is? Oh my God, it's story time! Yay! And we have Charlotte with us today, who is got only 3 more chapters left in her book. Oh, what are we gonna do, boys and girls? But let's find out what's happened to Twigs in the next 2 chapters.
Fabulous, thank you very much. So we left Twigs sitting on her bottom next to the tree that she has come through, feeling very downhearted. She can't believe that her home has now disappeared on the other side of the doorway, and she has landed herself in the company of an elf. And fairies and elves aren't meant to get along, so she feels like she's in a proper little pickle now. So the next chapter, chapter 14, is called An Adventure Has Begun. Thistle chuckled as he pulled the sullen and unconvinced fairy to her feet. He gave her an encouraging nudge before studying the unfamiliar forest ahead of them. Truthfully, Twigs liked his happy-go-lucky nature. It was a refreshing change from all of the recent worry and fear, and she found herself feeling glad that they'd met. What a strange emotion to feel. She glanced at him whilst biting her lip thoughtfully. Curious. She smiled to herself. She had to admit it was nice to have company and someone to talk to. Not that she would tell him that, though. Unaware of being so scrutinised, Thistle jumped in surprise when she nudged him back, rather harder than he'd nudged her, and Twigs laughed at the shocked expression on his face. Come on then, elf. I suppose we better see where we've ended up. Thistle smiled a knowing smile as he began to follow her down the sandy path ahead of them. If she was ready to start teasing him, then there was a chance that she might grow to like him, if only a little bit. This would be important if they were stuck with each other for a while. As she walked farther away from the place where the magical doorway had been, Twigs tried not to think about how far from home she now was, or to wonder if she'd ever find her way back to Fairy Forest. We will find our way back home, reassured Thistle, looking at her as if he'd read her mind. You do know that, don't you? Twigs shrugged and looked off into the distance. And whatever happens, you're not on your own anymore. We're in this together now, he continued. That counts for a lot, you know. The Fae kept silent, but she had to agree with him. It was comforting to know that she had someone by her side now. Whether he wanted to be or not was irrelevant. Fate had thrown them together, and all that mattered to her at that moment was that she was no longer all alone. It was a start, at least. Back at the tree, a blue-winged butterfly landed upon a small stick, no larger than a twig, that the insect had watched the fairy girl wedge tightly into a crevice in the bark. As the butterfly opened and shut its wings to capture the warmth of the sunlight, Twigs and Thistle disappeared around the next bend in the forest path to begin their determined search for the way back home. There's the butterfly on the branch, on the twig. Aww. Chapter 15. So we're leaving Twigs and Thistle for now, and we're well, wonder if you can guess who we're going back to see. Chapter 15 is Evil, Something You Do or Something You Are. Who do you think we're going to see? Maybe the naughty fairy, the evil fairy. Narcissa was growing tired of waiting. As she sat within her forest shelter, her black hood pulled over her raven locks, she calculated that everything had to be going according to plan. Otherwise, she'd have heard by now if anything had occurred to thwart her progress. But still, she was not the most patient of souls, and her irritation was beginning to show. It had been nearly 3 days since she'd sent off her Silvermoor warriors this time, and she hadn't anticipated having to wait this long to garner some news. She got to her feet and stomped outside to her sacred cauldron. Maybe some magic was in order to ascertain what was afoot. Just as she was about to gather her ingredients, she heard the snapping and shuffling of sticks from behind. So there she is at her cauldron. Oh.
She doesn't look very nice.
She's really not very nice. She turned to see one of her Silvermoors approaching, and her eyes glinted fiercely in expectation of the news she was about to receive. The Silvermore approached the cauldron and offered up a root to Narcissa. She rose into the air and then unharnessed a sharp knife from her belt, cutting a deep slit along the surface of the offered tendril. Clear drops of sap dripped almost musically into the potion within the mixing pot. Narcissa immediately began to chant, causing the bewitched ladle to begin its incessant stirring once more. At the same time, she placed her palm upon the sliced root of her Silvermore, and it healed instantly. The liquid within the cauldron began to bubble and to smoke, to boil and to hiss. Narcissa clapped her hands with glee as images began to appear, showing all of the events leading up to the fire in Fairy Forest, as seen through the eyes of the late guard fairy Leaf. However, as she watched, transfixed the moving images on the surface of the potion, her sinister smile faded, replaced by disbelief, and then sheer joy. Oh, ho, 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 look who we have, she chuckled, although the sound was far from pleasing. There you are, you slippery little rat. She was studying a red-haired fae standing alone in the vision, being punished by the fairy queen. Narcissa watched with wicked delight as the queen magicked away the fairy's wings and banished her to wander alone and frightened in the dark woods. This couldn't have played out better if she'd tried. Now that she'd uncovered the whereabouts of this miscreant and had deduced that she was all on her own, the fae would be easy pickings for her Silvermores. She refocused her attention on the potion's surface once more and looked at the queen. Dear Queen Iris, she sneered, you've seen better days by the looks of you. Narcissa continued to watch the images until the very end, to the moment when a giant root had appeared in front of Leaf's eyes and then redness had led to darkness. Narcissa was bursting with a terrible excitement. It all seemed so worth it now. All the anger, all the loneliness, all the hatred, all the time. It had all combined to lead to this very moment, this truly great moment. She was so close. Oh, that's the end of chapter 15.
Oh boy.
One more
What is she?
No.
Mhm. We are going to have to wait a whole week, boys and girls, till we get to find out what happens next.
Mm-hmm. And for some reason, she's got lights set on Twigs. So she is looking for Twigs, and let's find out next week. We'll see you then. You have a good week. Bye. Bye.